Today we're talking with State Representative Stephen Bloom of Carlisle, representing the 199th State Legislative District, a lawyer by training and now a state legislator. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tony.
And the reason why we were looking forward to talking to you today was not so much about your position on your bills, but the way we found out about your position on your bills, which was from your online tweets and Facebook page. You seem to be one of the most active legislators in terms of using social media. How did you get started in that?
I was involved in using social media long before I even ever imagined running for office. I had, for one, 3 teenage kids at home for quite some time during the rise of social media, so I became very familiar with Facebook and Twitter and some of the other platforms well before I ever thought about politics, and I just began using them as a natural extension of my own personal social interactions. I did a lot of writing before I ran for office, so I also began using the social media as a platform to help folks find out about the things I was writing. So those are kind of how I got connected initially with the whole concept of social media.
So you were using social media before you even decided to run for office.
Right.
Was your communication via social media a factor in helping you win election?
I think it was. You know, I was out there early I was in a very contested primary when I first ran for office, and there were 7 candidates. And I had by far the strongest social media presence. And although I don't believe this correlates exactly, I had, and this doesn't sound like a lot, but I had probably about 300 or so followers on my campaign Facebook page during that primary, and ended up winning that primary by about that exact number of votes. So I think it makes a difference, because we spend as politicians a huge amount of time just knocking on doors, trying to have that one-on-one conversation with the constituent. When you can talk to hundreds of constituents on a daily basis or on an hourly basis through social media, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I can see the state legislative district, 60,000 people, give or take, of which maybe 25,000 are registered voters and active. But when you start dividing up, you're going to have a certain percentage who are going to be for you because of your political party,
right.
Certain percentage you're going to be against. When you start getting down to that middle ground, a couple hundred votes here or there.
And the people you connect with on the social media platforms tend to be thought leaders, opinion leaders in the community. So they're interested enough in politics to begin with to want to follow a politician, which a lot of people don't want to do. And so they're making a difference talking to their neighbors about you.
Yeah. Even though people are looking at us probably right now on social media, what do you mean when you say social media? What are you using and how are you using it?
My primary platforms are Facebook and Twitter. I've got a presence on LinkedIn. I've got a presence on Google+. I do a lot of video shoots, so I do a lot on YouTube. But really, I feel like the meat and potatoes of it for me is Twitter and Facebook, and they each have their own niche. I think Facebook definitely connects more with the constituents in the district. I think Twitter tends to connect you more on a statewide basis with some of the political leaders, as I said, some of the statewide thought leaders, some of the media and press people that you can really develop a relationship with and begin to know what they're about by following them. So Twitter, I think, gets you into a sort of a different realm, but they each have their own place and they're both important.
Yeah, one of the things that sort of called you to our attention was your Twitter activity right from the floor of the House, where you've made the House floor accessible to anybody in the state that wants to follow you. You're posting the votes as they occur, correct?
Yeah, and that's something I promised my constituents I would do. I would post every final vote I take on the final passage of a bill. I would post what the bill was about, what it was called, the bill number, so they could look it up, and how I voted. And I've been doing that, and some days it's easier than others because there are times we get into a pattern of vote after vote after vote, and it's all I can do to keep up. Other days we don't take that much action, so it's a little easier. But it's interesting, I've gotten some friendly barbing from the members of the Capitol Press Corps, because sometimes I beat them on the scoop of the vote, and they're kind of frustrated because I'm right there and I know what's happening right then and there when it happens.
Twitter information going out, you also are a retweeter. What kind of things do you look to resend out to the attention of people?
I'm looking for something that's informative, that is not the same thing that everybody else is retweeting. I try to do a fairly minimal amount of retweeting, but enough to be interesting for folks, maybe to get things exposed that wouldn't ordinarily be seen if it weren't for a little extra push. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for something that's a little bit of a unique angle on a story, something that'll be informative and something that maybe wouldn't get the proper attention if it didn't get some additional bumps.
Facebook is a good way to establish two-way communication. Been looking at your Facebook page. What kind of people are talking to you and giving you their ideas?
It's all about two-way communication. I mean, I think the biggest misconception about social media in general is that you can use it to broadcast information. It's absolutely not a broadcast tool. It's an interactive tool. It's about a conversation. And I have constituents, local elected officials, friends and foes that come regularly to my Facebook page, offer comments, and while you get a few instances where the comments might be harsh or abusive, for the most part, we have a great conversation. We have a lot of give and take, a lot of back and forth. Folks share information with me, I share information with them, and I found it to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I've noticed that some of your communicators are people who are names that I recognize that are relatively liberal individuals in their Facebook posts. You're pretty much recognized as a conservative, and you're having a civil conversation where you recognize someone regardless of political affiliation for the quality of their ideas, and I presume they're returning the favor.
One of the things, Tony, that I've been told by a number of constituents is, and in particular constituents who are far more on the other end of the political spectrum than I, they'll say things to me like, Steve, you know, I disagree with you on most all your policy decisions, but I really appreciate the effort you've made to keep us informed. And I feel better informed about what's happening in Harrisburg than I ever felt before. So I get that kind of comment consistently from folks, which to me, that's, again, what social media is all about. It's a conversation. It's getting people connected in a way that we couldn't be connected in the past.
It seems that I'm not going to say you're an active person involved in the Tea Party, but you have Tea Party people following you. What's your view of the web and social media as an organizing and a team building tool?
Well, it's key. I mean, like we talked about, it can be used in the campaign context. It can be used as a connection tool to galvanize a movement, galvanize an idea. People can rally around it. They can connect with each other. So certainly it has an impact. I mean, we see the same thing around the world with all the various literal revolutions taking place in different countries that tend to be driven by the fact that the people can now connect on social media. And it's not anything that can, it's not specifically good for the Tea Party or good for some other particular group, because it cuts across the ideological spectrum. Any group can use it as a tool to really connect and galvanize its membership.
Are you seeing any trends in your district or in your communications about issues that are finding people coalescing on the web?
I mean, I think for me in my district, the same old issue continues to arise, which is the frustration people have with school property taxes. And I see a lot of that on my social media when I'm hearing from my constituents issues about that, and that seems to resonate with the people, something that I continue to work on, and it's out there. It's a real issue. Same thing I found when I went door to door. And Twitter or Facebook or any social media tool is really just a reflection of the real life relationships you have. And I always find it's very helpful still to do the traditional things too. You can't just rely on social media. You still need to have that flesh and blood, face-to-face relationship with folks.
Going forward, as social media develops and it spreads in the community, what's your vision for what role social media might be playing in the next 2 years and going on beyond that?
Well, it's no longer arguable whether it's important in politics. It certainly is. It's established a critical role. The old model where an event would happen in politics and then later the spin doctors would come in and try to spin that event in some way, shape, or form, that model has collapsed. The spin begins at the moment anything occurs. People are talking about it right away in a way that others are seeing that and hearing about it, and the conversation begins instantaneously. So it's sped up the entire political cycle. There's always going to be, I think, changes and adaptations. Things come and go. I can remember I talked about my kids earlier. When my kids first got on social media, they were involved in Xanga and MySpace, platforms today which seem so antiquated no one talks about them. It could be that in 2 years we're talking about...
Was there a platform called Xanga?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we could be talking about Twitter and Facebook in the past tense, because you never know. People, things change rapidly in the arena of social media, so that's part of it is kind of keeping your eyes open, your ears open to see what's happening next.
Any tricks you want to divulge to your competitors in this upcoming election that you're going to use Facebook or social media for in the fall election?
Well, at this point, Tony, I don't have an opponent in
in
the primary or the fall election, so
it works.
Yeah, I'll be using it to communicate with my constituents like I always do.
Good. We've been talking with Representative Stephen Bloom from Carlisle. Thanks again for coming and joining us.
Thank you, Tony. It's been great.